Hello, I'm Joan. I'm a Canadian family physician who also works as a restorative medical educator, facilitator, and coach. I create spaces that rehumanize the work of healthcare. I'm creating this podcast to remind myself, as well as anyone else working in a helping profession, that when you are working and caring for your human patients, you are the other human in the room. Hey there, healthcare humans. Before we get into this week's episode, I want to let you know that one of my self-paced courses called Homecoming, which is a course that's about rest and embodiment. It's an introductory way of learning to deeper understand the concepts of embodiment, about how to feel like a human being in a human body through practicing rest. I want to let you know that that course is going to be on sale for 50% off for the entire month of June. There isn't a coupon code. All you have to do is click the link in the show notes below, or go to my website, look under courses, click on Homecoming, and you'll find the summer sale option there waiting for you. I'd love if you spent this summer inviting more rest into your life, because I think all of us in healthcare need to practice more rest. We're deeply socialized not to rest. And if you're looking for a supportive learning container that you can take at your own pace to explore the concept of rest through written as well as audio and visual podcasts and videos to help you understand the concepts of embodiment more, I would love if you would consider enrolling in that course and use it to have a beautiful summer of rest. Now, on with the episode. Hello again, healthcare humans. I think you're going to hear a couple of clips in a row that are little extra clips before we dive into the meat of the episode of this podcast. So this little intro is to just orient you to the series that you're actually in the middle of in terms of what's happening on my podcast. So last week, I started a 3-part series that's all about year 2 in review, because this is my second year. This is the second birthday of my podcast, is happens this month, and I wanted to do a series that was just reflecting on what has changed in my life over the past year. I did this at the end of my first year of doing my podcast, and I really loved those episodes, and I've heard from some of you that you really love them, and so I wanted to do them again. I originally recorded it as one giant episode, thinking that I could be brief and not talk for over an hour, and spoiler alert, I talked for more than an hour. So I'm actually chopping these up and doing 3 separate podcasts. So the one that's already out that you may have heard last week was all the different things that have changed in my life, in my what I'm calling my personal life, as in my non-work life. And the way that I'm viewing this entire series is not just what's changed, but basically I'm looking at it through the frame of what are the new identities that I now hold that I didn't really hold a year ago, as well as what identities did I hold, but now either have a different or a deeper meaning to me, right? So now we're about to jump into the second chunk of the podcast, which is me reflecting on the changes in how I view myself and the identities I hold in terms of my clinical work in family medicine. So I hope you enjoy that. And yeah, have fun. Moving on to my clinical medicine life. I didn't have one that, oh, actually, no, I do have one that is like brand new that I'm going to save for the end. But other ones that are not new, but I feel like, again, I've just embodied on a deeper level. Definitely, I am a family physician. I love family medicine. I know there's a lot of stress in primary care or family medicine or whatever you call it, but I just love it more and more all the time. I can't imagine doing something different with like my clinical life. I mean, I can imagine it and it would be fine, but like something about deeply being in relationship with these people and following them over time and getting to know every part of it, and everything getting to belong is so delicious, and I love it. And it's not that there aren't crunchy bits, like less forums definitely still would be good, but I've really, fallen in deeper love with my patients, my practice. I just have enjoyed it so much, in part because I really have especially this past year in particular, not spent as much physical time there. Like I still spend 3 days a week doing clinical practice, but I don't spend full days there each time. It kind of varies. I keep switching up my schedule, but I try and stop seeing patients by 4 at the latest, but most days it's like by 3 or 3:30. So then I have time to wrap up my day and leave feeling good. And so it's kind of like what I was saying with Francis, a little less time together actually helps the time together we have be more special and meaningful and has allowed me to be more deeply connected with patients on a more regular basis. And that feels delicious. Something that I've continued to do is create other opportunities and ways of connecting with them. So I've been doing like Zoom virtual town halls. Over this past year, I think I've done two. One was like, was it? Or maybe not. Maybe I just did the one last year. The one I did last year, I think it was before I recorded this podcast. Yeah, because it was right around the time when Francis was starting his cancer journey. I did that one. And in that one, I did it in part to share, like, hey, I now have 2 nurse practitioners working with me. The hours are going to be a little different. And I shared at that one that my husband was going through a serious medical illness. I didn't want to share more than that because I didn't even know what was happening. And I was sort of just checking my own capacity of like, how much I even wanted to share. Because knowing that, depending on how much I share, people would be asking, and did I have the emotional bandwidth to deal with it, or was I going to be crying with every patient? And, that being something that it's fine to cry with patients, but like, did I want to spend my whole day doing that? Right. And so that felt good then. And then, yes, it was then just in the spring again. I did another one, and it was in part just to like reconnect, refresh. Hi, these are still the hours. These are still the nurse practitioners working with me. This is still the patient portal where you can message me, like some of that stuff. But then I did share more. I shared that my husband had cancer, and he was okay now. And so I shared a bit more detail now that it was sort of in the past. And I also shared with them the same framework that I shared in my like capacity workshop. If you've ever seen any of the iterations of my like, cultivating and creating capacity workshop, I shared that with them too, because that's like, I really want to make sure that what I'm learning and bringing to all of you guys, I'm also bringing to my patients. And so I shared that with them. And like the responses after each of those town halls has been just really beautiful. Even when I was a bit vaguer, people saying like, hey, how's your husband? And like now afterwards being like, hey, I saw the town hall. I didn't know you're going through that. I'm so glad he's okay. How's he now? It feels just deeply like human connection. I've always loved, since I heard it in a talk, the notion that what we are doing with our patients is bi-directional healing, is in two directions, like that it is healing to hold space for humans as they're going through what they're going through, as I'm the physician and they're the patients. And there's also these like real personal ways that comes through too, and that's been very touching. And it's fine when people don't care. It's fine when people don't bring it up. It's not like I'm expecting it. It's just always this gorgeous, delicious, lovely thing when people do. That's just so meaningful and so wonderful. So that's been really lovely. Another newer way is that I've created an email list, because the way that we were mass emailing through the EMR we were in just got like way harder. Like it would take my staff like a week to like finally get all the emails out because of silliness. And so I made like a MailChimp email list. I used it to promote the town hall. And then since then, not even every month, but every 1 to 2 months, I've put out I did a spring update, and I just put out like a summer update. And it's got mostly the same information of like, here's how our after hours, here's how you can book online, like some things that I want to continually remind them they have access to. So if they're just thinking the only way to see me is like calling on the phone and then getting frustrated, like, hey, here's some other ways. Remember, you can get care here. And then and I often have added in different updates. So like in the spring, because of illness and vacation and stuff, like it was harder to get an appointment with me. And so I like named that so they knew what was going on. And then in, the summer update, I said, hey, I'm going to be taking some time off this summer because I am taking 4 weeks off. In this case, I'm splitting it 1 week and 3 weeks, but like letting them know that was true, but that also nurse practitioners were going to be covering my practice, and encouraging them, please see them. They're amazing. Like sort of just sharing and promoting the services that I was offering. They're sort of like marketing emails, really. I think in medicine, we don't think that we need to market anything. And like, listen, I'm not advertising for more patients. I am still working through how to handle the applications I get that way. But like, marketing is communication, and communication with our patients can happen more than just one to one. Like, doing things that where you're sort of mass marketing signs, we do some of it, but I don't know if we always think of it as marketing. And there's something about what I've learned actually from my coaching work of like kind of nurturing your audience type stuff, but like that being very relevant with our patients, especially the word nurturing of like, hey, like presenting a nurturing, caring approach with patients, and that helps. Not every single patient, some people still will be like, you're not doing enough, but there's something of like, hey, I have intention behind how I'm offering my care to you. I'm here, I am caring for you, even if it's hard for you to see me, just so you know I'm caring for you. Like, there's something about that I can't measure exactly. I guess I could measure, I could like ask them their perception of me or something, but like the sense I get is that it helps to cultivate that relationship, even during times when they don't even need to see me. But like, I've had people reply like, I love these emails. Thank you so much for sending them. So just like lets them know that there's a person that they could reach out to when they need. And so I've really liked doing that. The last thing I wanted to say about being a family physician is that we moved offices over this past year, and that was not the most fun, pretty intense. Our office manager, bless her heart and soul, and hopefully we gave her a big bonus. I hope she knows how much we appreciated all the logistics that she helped to get us to move. But we're now in this beautiful, bigger, more spacious office setting where it's more accessible for patients, parking's easier for patients, and we have windows. And I didn't even know, like, there's something about the physical setting when you're in it, you're like, it's fine. And it was fine, but there were no windows. And now looking back, I really remembering it quite dungeon like, and it kind of was like, it was fine, but it was just fine. And now I'm like, there's windows, there's space, it's beautiful. It gave a beautiful new logo, and it's just like the aesthetics of the setting in which you work. I know I've had conversations with coaching clients and they're like, I think I really need to like just put up some pictures. And I'm like, yes, like that stuff matters. Like, I kind of have my whole little desk space cultivated with little beautiful pictures and things that I love looking at. And it just like it just helps your body be more regulated, and helps you feel more grounded, and settled. And that helps you practice better medicine, honestly. So like, thinking of the aesthetics of our workspace, I'm so happy where we are now. And I feel like there's been a different shift in just sort of the culture of our office, and it really helped to sort of reinvigorate some stuff. And I've really loved that. Another identity, which is kind of more descriptive, but I am sticking it in there, is that I continue to practice being more clinically replaceable. So as much as I deeply love my role as a family physician, I don't have to be the sole offerer of primary care to my patients. And so working with the two nurse practitioners that have been a part of my active team, a third one coming in for locum sometimes, it's been really wonderful. We've tried to keep up the tradition of meeting pretty much every week, by Zoom, typically just for like accessibility. And then we can talk about cases. They've taught me some new guidelines I didn't know. I've shared some things that I hope were helpful for them. And just that sense of team-based connection. Actually, later today, we're going to have I realized we never like just went out, like had a meal together. So, we're going to have lunch together. I want to do more of that, more probably like in-person connection. And that's feeling really good. And the active collaboration, I am hopeful that I will have a podcast that's specifically about that, probably with at least one of them, if they are still open to doing it, and just to talk about like kind of the practicalities of that, and what feels hard about that, and what makes it feel crunchy at times, but why it's super, super worth it. So I want to talk more about that in the future, but it's just been so wonderful to be that kind of collaborator and have a more deeply collaborative medical practice. I just think it's better for patients, honestly. It really is. The like monogamous setup of like one doc to patient, it's not sustainable for the physician. And like, you need people with different ideas, honestly. So that's been really wonderful. Another identity that I hold is that I am a business owner. And the thing is, I've been a business owner since I took over this practice actually in 2014. And yet I've really often shied away. I was like, I'm not a business owner, even though I literally employ people, like pay taxes. But like, I haven't thought of myself that way. So it's really been since like opening the coaching and education part of my business that I've been like, right, the other one was a business too. And really getting more comfortable with that, getting more comfortable with money, as I've talked about in previous podcasts, seeing it as this really helpful resource not only to support myself but also to support everyone who helps me, like all the team members that like, because I am earning this income, I am helping them earn their income and resource themselves and their families and their lifestyle, and like really honoring the role that that is, and not taking it seriously in a pressure way, but just like sort of treating it with the respect it deserves and finding a way to do it that's like liberatory and values aligned. And that's been feeling really good. And I'm getting a sense actually that I want to take even more steps in that direction of like being more myself as an employer. And I'm looking forward to like continuing to like grow in my comfort around that. And the last clinical medicine identity that's newer that I have been holding a little bit that I'm about to be holding a lot more is I'm going to be a preceptor. So I coming starting in July, I am going to be sharing the responsibility of being like the primary preceptor for a family medicine resident for their entire 2 years. It's going to be me and then a couple of the other docs in my office, but primarily me. And I'm so excited. I've loved having, I've had a few residents, I've had one resident, family medicine resident, and a few clerks. So like medical students, either pre-clerkship or during their clerkship rotation for family medicine. And I've loved teaching them. I've definitely noticed like stories come up of like, but I don't know everything. But like, actually, the more I embrace that, like the main thing I teach them is that I don't know everything. And like, why don't you look it up? And then I realize I do know a bunch of stuff, actually. I have a lot to teach. And I love teaching. I love coaching. That's why I made a whole side business of it. So the idea of having that more direct impact on learners and helping to influence what the future of healthcare and the culture that we could build together by like actively supporting and being, even if it's a short-term mentor to these folks, has just been already such a joy. And I'm so looking forward. I'm sure there's going to be challenges and benefits, and I'm really looking forward to taking on that new role through the same university that I'm already faculty at McMaster University. So yes, that's going to be very exciting to do. And yeah, we'll see what it brings up. The thing that it really reiterates for me is like, I am very, very grateful for all of the like time management, time efficiency in a human-based way work I've done, where I'm like quite diligent about finishing a chart note after each patient. I have my way of getting through an inbox, because when you have a learner with you, then I have noticed that it's good to be flexible and have a couple different ways of getting that same objective done. But I've also offered that to my learners. I'll be like, okay, so I'm going to finish this note and then we're going to go see the next person. And like modeling that for them has felt really good. All right. This is a long episode. Do you think I should split it up? Hello again. I so you've just it's Joan from the future, Joan from when she's editing these podcasts and making them into three separate podcasts instead of the one that I had originally intended. And that's why I left in that little thing, because that was the point. Like I don't know, 40 or 50 minutes into recording, being like, I have a whole other section to go. This is getting silly. So I thought I'd leave that in just as like just joking. I totally did split it up in the end. Yeah, I also noticed this section of my reflections was the shortest one. I think it's like 15 minutes or something. And when I think about it, in some ways that reflects that my clinical work is not necessarily the center of my life. It's one of the centers, but it's not the all-consuming identity that it used to be. So it's actually kind of fascinating that, in this series of podcasts where I'm talking about different identities I hold, I'm spending less time even really like holding on to identities that relate to the fact that I practice primary care, the fact that I am a family physician. Like, I just think that is kind of interesting. And it doesn't mean it's not important to me. Certainly my personal life, like maybe I still would have become a Swiftie and sang songs in a choir, maybe. But definitely like the part that is to come next week, which is talking about restorative medical education work and the podcast and coaching, I wouldn't have that without this. And I actually see a lot of people, in the coaching space be like, quit your day job, become a coach. But like, I couldn't be a good teacher or coach in the way, when I say good, I just mean effective in the way that would feel right to me, in a way that I feel like I would be um, really most able to help people if I wasn't also doing the kind of work that they're doing. Not that you have to be like a family physician to work with me. I think just something about being in the clinical mindset and just also just having that body of knowledge, even if it's not a full overlap, I think that's really meaningful. And I think that all that work that I have done, both in the personal life and all the joy I'm bringing in there, and bringing Swiftyhood into my clinical work, and also all of the podcasting or sort of medical education work, that has really enriched and alivened, enlivened, whatever that word is, my clinical work in a way that is wonderful, because there's so much about the way that medicine was framed to me, the way I saw it modeled, which had like lots of good in it and also lots of not so great in it. And even not so great like evil or bad, but just like not a good fit for me. Like if you've ever heard me talk about imposter syndrome on a number of episodes that I've had in the past about imposter syndrome, I was just really thinking as I was viewing this part of the podcast, how in some ways what I'm talking about is just like being myself in my workplace and being myself with patients more and more fully, as feels safe and feels like my nervous system can handle it, and just that being really like delicious and wonderful. Because my notion of imposter syndrome is really that it's not about us being incompetent or something flawed or wrong with us. Imposter syndrome means that you're in a setting, in a society, in an institution, in a culture that says you can only fit in certain boxes. And if you are outside those boxes, you are an imposter, right? And so if you're feeling imposter syndrome, what you're really feeling is like the shame based, othering, non-belonging messages that you're receiving from the environment around you. And that's why I thought, at the end of this episode in particular, in part because it's kind of a shorter one, though nothing wrong with that really, I really wanted to offer you a space to reflect on the ways that you still feel like you can't be your full self in your healthcare work. And I mean, am I my full self in my healthcare work? In some ways, that's its own perfectionistic nonsense. So we're not grading on a scale of 1 to 100 of like how full self you are. Okay. But how often are you feeling a real sense of like having to mask and hide things that you'd rather not? And how exhausting is that, right? And what happens if you go through the process of like kind of coming out as yourself and growing in your authenticity and growing in your humanity, which is your authenticity, your unique shape, your unique interests, your unique voice and vocal style, like whatever it is, right? Whether it's outside appearance and how you dress, whether it's the way you speak, and whether it's what you say, what you think, your sense of humor, like whatever those pieces are that you feel like you have to hide at work. Something that for the last several years now, and honestly is ongoing work for me, because the desire to fit in is so strong. And I like in ways that I don't even catch until afterwards. I'm like, wow, why did I laugh at that joke? What? I don't think that's funny, So it's an ongoing process for me too. And so I just wanted to invite you along to reflect and consider, you know, what are some ways you could maybe peek out from behind a mask that you're wearing in a part of your workplace, maybe like with one colleague, maybe with one patient, and if you found the way I'm describing my clinical work in this podcast and how I'm describing it now is something that might sound appealing, it might sound a little scary, but also like way less exhausting, this is my invitation to you. And a piece of how I'm going to offer you that invitation is actually a poem, and not just a poem, but a spell. This comes from a book called Fables and Spells, collected in new short fiction and poetry Uh-oh, it's too long of a title. I can't read the whole thing. But it's by, you guessed it, Adrienne Marie Brown, emergent strategy author. And she has this whole collection of books. And this is another one. And it's all like these poems that she calls spells. And I kind of love that. Whether you believe in magic or not, there's something about the notion of, I mean, the power of words, the power of ideas. A way of thinking of magic is you say something out loud and then it becomes true, right? You say, Wingardium Leviosa, and then something levitates off the ground. And what if, as we speak in different ways and we speak out loud what we wish and we speak out loud our truths, that does create a shift and a change that has power to shift things in our world, right? So I wanted to just read this spell to you. It's about coming out, and you can tell from the context that it's in part about coming out in terms of maybe your gender identity, your sexuality, and those are honestly like some of my biggest role models for living life authentically are folks that are non-conforming with either to like the heteronormative cisgender stuff, because they have to break the mold every day with who they are, with like how they look, with who they love. And I find that very inspiring. And I invite you to listen, whether that's a piece of how you would love to be more your authentic self at work is those pieces, your gender, your sexuality, but also just like any other part of yourself, just like you being you. I want to offer you this spell in hopes that it starts to set in motion some magic for you. The Coming Out Spell by Adrienne Marie Brown. Come out, yes, and that isn't the end. It's the first time to practice becoming yourself. Come out within yourself by noticing what your heart moves towards and what makes your root pulse. Come out into your true voice in a confession to a beloved who is surprised or who is never surprised. Come out by letting your gaze linger, your smile hint, your questions press. Come out with the new look that lets people know who you are, that fashion that doesn't give a fuck, or fashion that cares very much. Come out with a kiss that takes your breath away, a kiss you didn't know was possible, kisses that pull fire from the core of the earth into your belly. Come out as a lover and be wild with your desires, or shockingly tame in your satisfactions, or both and ever shifting. Come out as a weirdo and be deliciously odd as you race away from constructs and deconstructs. Come out as one who doesn't know any more what they are so sure about, but is delighted by the mystery. And don't stop there. Don't stop now. Keep changing, keep going. Never aim for normal. Aim for you, utterly and dreamily you. Come on, that's got some magic behind it. Am I right? So that's my spell and my offering for all of you. And I'll catch you next week for the last part of this series. I would love to take this work deeper with you. Visit joanchanmd.com today and discover my growing menu of options for restorative medical education to suit your learning needs. I offer one-on-one coaching, customized workshops, and self-study courses that allow you to connect not only with my work on a deeper level, but also with other healthcare humans just like you. So if you want to start humanizing your work in healthcare to a deeper level and do it in community with others, please visit joanchanmd.com and find those options and what fits you and your life today.